Hey stranger, I see you admiring my new wrist blaster. Maybe it's from the power pack, or the way the projectiles glow a sinister red, or maybe it's just the way the wires throb with energy. I shall show you how it works. Pew 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 pew! Sorry. So I found this little Nerf blaster sitting in the checkout aisle at the store. I guess some kids' parents told them no, you can't have it, so they just left it there. But I go, that would look great on my wrist. It's fairly small. It fit right on my wrist. So there are some problems with this particular blaster the way it is right now. First of all is the handle. I want it mounted on my wrist like this, and that handle's in the way. Second of all, it's going to be a con type weapon, so I don't want anything to actually fire out of it. I want to be able to put the darts or something in there, make them look nice and steampunky, but I don't want it to fire, which means I really don't need this either. The barrel, or whatever this orange thing is here, rotates by hand. If you cock it, this doesn't do anything, so you can only rotate it by hand. And then you pull the trigger, and it shoots. So we can get rid of the trigger, we can get rid of this, and we can get rid of this. Basically, I just want to keep this white part and the orange thing here. Now there's some other issues with this white part. It's got an 03 here, which is very future military looking here, which won't fit with the steampunk aesthetic. And it's also got, it says X-Shot up here, so I want to get rid of that. It's got these stickers here as well, but you know what else is nice and circled and steampunky? Gears. So we can just throw a gear on there and call it steampunk. We'll do some other stuff as well. I'm thinking maybe some EL wire or something to go in and out here, and maybe some, I don't know, we'll figure something out. Alright, so all the screws are out. I just take this part off here. And that's the inside of the gun. A neat thing here is that this just lifts right out and goes away. But we don't need any of this. So we can just take this right out. Take that out there. So really all we need is the orange thing here. And we need this little metal part here because that's in the indent here. That's the little metal piece indenting into these little divots here. So we're going to be wanting to paint these probably a matte black, and then we can go over with some rub and buff and get them nice and steampunky looking. However, we got to take care of the little numbers and letters that we don't want here. Alright, so I'm going to use this quick wood epoxy putty, which is actually kind of nifty. I've already used it on this one up here, just so I knew what I was doing when I was on camera. You can see there's two colors. You just cut off a little bit and you mold it or rub around with your fingers, and then you put it where you want it. And then it dries. I'm cutting off just a very small amount. Alright, so now you can see it's got two different colors, and all we do is just mash it together until it's all one color. Alright, you can see that it's all one color now, so it's mixed really well. And we can start pushing it in to the numbers here. So now I'm going to use the picks to kind of clear it off, much like I did this one. That'll make sanding a lot easier. Okay, so what I did here is I left a lot of it kind of proud, kind of sticking up off of the surface a bit. You can kind of see it there. That way when I take the sandpaper and go over, I'm sanding down to it, down to the plastic here, and hopefully I won't scratch up the plastic. The same goes for these little lines through here. You want to make sure that all these are clear, all the corners are clear. And up here, this is very smooth plastic right here. And you want to make sure that you're not going to have to sand too much on that smooth plastic, because then you run the risk of scratching that all up. So here are the two halves. You can kind of see how that looks when it's dried. It's got all those ridges and everything. And it's kind of not so pretty looking. And here I've done some sanding work on it. I probably did a little too much up in here. As you can see, these little circles here are supposed to be like have little dimples in them. They're gone here. So I probably went a little bit overboard on the sanding. I did 320 grit, 400, and 600 to get up to this level here. I took the sticker off here. One note here is do not use acetone with this kind of plastic to try and get the gummy sticker stuff off. Maybe go with Goo Gone. Acetone works fine on metal, but not so much on plastic. It melts the plastic. So, lessons learned. So here are the parts now that the primer's dried. You can see that the epoxy putty is still somewhat visible, and there's still some divots in there. I'm not sure if it's going to show up on camera. But there's going to be some more. I have to go back in with the putty and fill in some divots and then resand again. So now it's time to get crafty. I mixed up a little paint in here, some brown oxide, melted chocolate, and flamenco red. We're going to hit all of these parts here to make it look kind of like wood. Now I'm going to rub and buff this. I'm going to use the autumn gold, which is what's already on my finger. I think that'll look cool. Just getting just a little bit in those indentations there, not much. Just enough to kind of give it just a hint of what was there. So that looks, really looks kind of dirty. There you go. See how that kind of looks dirty and grimy, like stuff got stuck in there? That's what I'm going for. I think that looks really good. I'm very happy with that. So now I'm going to hit with some metallic gunmetal gray. I'm just going to kind of swipe it over there fairly quickly. And again, kind of leave some of the blackness to show through. I like the way that just kind of pops. Finally, from my little palette over here, I'm going to go with the European Gold Rub and Buff. Put that, this big black area up here. How it's going to look when it's all together. We're close. I got to go back and touch up some of the black in here. Touch up some of the other paints and stuff that I went over with the rub and buff. So this is the original dart that went into the cylinder of the Nerf Blaster, but now it doesn't really fit with the aesthetic that I've turned it into. What would really be nice if I had some kind of pointy tip thing that glows, maybe a menacing red. Well, that's where this comes in. This is a 11mm red glue stick. It fits in there fairly well, but it's a little loose. So what I did is I cut one of the other darts. I'll probably have to make it a little shorter than what it is now, but it fits right in there. And then I'm going to put the red part on that. So, but I'd like to get kind of a tip on there as well. And the way I'm going to do that is I've got a pencil sharpener for these carpenter type pencils. I don't really like the pencils, but in this case the sharpener actually comes in handy. You can see it's got a nice it's got a flat top, but we can take care of that. But I like that size. So I'm going to use a knife and cut it off. There we go. Now we just need to make 2 more of those, figure out how to attach them onto the end of the dart, and figure out how to put an LED in there. As you can see, I've been tinkering. So here's everything after the paint is pretty much dried. Now I got some other problems we want to have to deal with here. For instance, I want to be able to get an LED down that chamber down there, and this is blocking it. There's a very similar one on this side as well, so I'm going to have to take a Dremel and grind that out. And then in order to attach it down here, I was going to use a zip tie. And then there's this part that's in the way here, this bit of plastic here, so I got to ground that out as well. And then I got to put holes in here so I can run the zip tie through. Black, zip black. So now we need a way to mount the gun to our arm. I'm going to start with this water bottle. You can use pretty much any plastic bottle, you know, pop or soda, whatever you call it, wherever you are. But my wife drinks these like water. So we're going to cut it up. Alright, so now we're just going to cut it down the line here and remove the plastic, the wrapper here. This is going to be kind of funny because I'm going to be drawing with my left hand. Yeah, basically just put it around there. Get it kind of lined up where you want it. Take a Sharpie. I'm going to kind of go from the corner and try to make it parallel. So now we have some craft foam. It's not very thick. Got this from Walmart. That's where we also got these water bottles from. So now I'll lay the water bottle that I cut off here. We're going to leave about 1 inch on this side here and probably about 1 inch on this side here. So I'm just going to mark this here. Let's go here. So now that we got this piece cut to the proper size, we're going to cover this and the outside of the plastic piece with contact cement. Now this is the part that wants to roll. It wants to roll this way, so kind of curl in this like that. Yep, just like that. See? So you got to kind of tape it down to something. Alright, the contact cement is pretty much dried. I'm going to take the plastic off of this piece of wood here, and I got to be very careful here that it doesn't stick to its curl up and stick to itself. Alright, so we're going to kind of guess where it's at here in the middle. I'm going to start putting it down over here and sticking it together here. And get it all down here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of cut about 1 inch away from the edges here. And now we're going to put contact cement around the edges and on the edges of the inside of the plastic. Alright, now that that's pretty much dried, you can just start folding it over along the edges of the plastic here. Working from the center and going out. And there we go. It's got some nice definition to it. It's got some stiffness and some grabbiness. It's not quite as tightly rolled up as it was before. Here's another one I did. You can see how it's, whereas this one is now just in this shape here. So I ended up not quite liking the way it looked. And I took some strips of craft foam and used the contact cement to attach them around here so they give it kind of a 3D effect. Some depth, I guess. One thing I would definitely do differently though, as you can see there's a gap here. Instead of bending this part over here, I'd cut it flush with the plastic and then bend this part over. So that way it made a complete seam all the way around. I think that would look better. But I'm not going to go back and redo this. It's good enough. But I did it anyway. As you can see here, I've got the edge banding now going over. This is a completely new one. It's on all sides now, so it's nice and pretty on the edges. So here is where the blaster is going to be mounted. On here. I've also marked spaces for a battery pack here, should I decide to use that, and for the battery pack here to run the LEDs that are in the blaster. Now I need to cut out pockets for these to be mounted in. So I marked where I want the battery pack to go, which is right about there, and I marked the lines there. And then I measured out another piece of craft foam. What this will do is it'll go over like that, and we're going to contact cement the flaps down here. So tight I can't get it out. See? Goes right in and then slides right in there. That worked out well. There we go. Now we got it. Alright. So now we got those on. And I believe this is ready for paint. So here's a good way to get your bracers to dry from the paint and not get newspaper all over the bottom ring. Throw a beer bottle or kombucha bottle or whatever bottle or cup you might have, and then just let them dry like that. Either throw the beer bottle away when you're done or wash it off and use it again. So here we are now after a couple coats of black acrylic paint. My wife has so very graciously helped by putting epoxy dots around to look like rivets. And I have real rivets in here because that's what I have the Velcro attached to as well. So that's how it's going to attach to my arm. Now I need to make it look like leather. I'm going to be using a satin. This is a chocolate sprinkle, but it's basically a brown color. And that's going to be the center parts of these. And then I have a black gloss, which I'm going to be doing just the strips around here. That should give it a leather look, and then I go back over with some rub and buff, and it'll hit the rivets. So I got the 3 LEDs in the cylinder right now. I'm trying to figure out how to fit everything in here. These are not really needed, but I don't want to cut them off because I have to resolder the wires back together, and that's just something I'd rather not have to worry about right now. I only need one of these to power it, so let's take that one out. And then I want another one to come in back here. So actually this one can go over here and power this one. So I've marked these as being black wires. I kind of used a Sharpie on there and a red Sharpie on these two here. Focus, there we go. So now I just got to solder these together, and I'll have a full of everything pretty much wired up, except for power. So now I can hook up the red to red. See the 3 there. Got the one back here. Yeah, that's good. I like it. Alright, now we're about to ready to wire this up for power. You can see here I've marked that white wire with a red Sharpie to tell me that's my red, and the other one is marked with a black Sharpie, and that's my black. So when I connect them to the USB power, I know red and red goes together and black go together. But first I got to put in this 100 ohm resistor so we don't short anything out. So I'm just going to be using one of the cords that came with one of the chargers. And an interesting thing about these USB cables is that they are only the black and red wires. There are no data wires in there, just the black and red. So that kind of makes it easier. This is a little longer than I need, but I kind of think that looks cool. It sticks out a little bit. I'll put some covering over it and rub and buff that up, and it'll look cool. I like it. So I don't really have enough room on the red wire or the black wire to put some shrink tubing on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it over the top of the resistor and slide it all the way back down here like that. So that way it doesn't shrink on us while we're trying to solder this up. Alright, so now that we got everything soldered in there, we're going to kind of put it out the hole where the handle came out of, and we want it to stay in there. So, hot glue time. Hot glue action. So we're going to use some of this wire cover stuff. Hit this with a little rub and buff, and it looks pretty good. Alright, so I'm going to try and just have it come out this area here. And by the looks of it, that just fits nice and snug in there. Now I get to seal this up. So now I'm going to attach the blaster to the Gauntlet. And I'm going to be using twisty ties as my mechanical connection. Because if you've ever tried to get any type of toy or something out of packaging full of twisty ties, you know it's nearly impossible. Heck, just trying to get this blaster out of its packaging was a pain in the butt. So I'm going to use that, but I'm also going to use some hot glue on the bottom to kind of keep it centered and so it doesn't rock around so much. So I'm just going to expose just a little bit of those twisty ties here. Bring in the hot glue gun. Push it in there real good. Make sure I'm straight.
Finish twisting. These up. Do that. These up.
Go like that. Now there we go. Formidable steampunk warrior. And here it is, finished product. Well, not quite finished. Still gotta do some rub and buffing on here. You can see how it all lights up here. There's that. And then there's that. So I push the button again. As always, thank you for watching. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up button. If you like this kind of content and want to see some more, hit subscribe and the little bell icon so you know when we put out more. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you again on the next one.